Good evening. So look, cohabitation, right? Yeah. I really want to know y'all's opinions on cohabitation because it varies, obviously, out here between people. But a very important person in my life is in the midst of something. I'm going to be a little checkered with my delivery. I don't want to say their name. But this person's very dear to me. And there's something in me. I'm going to just lay this out in three kind of parts. I'm going to tell you how I feel about it. I'm going to tell you what it is. And then I'm going to, you know what I'm saying? Tie the bow. Alright. So, I feel that this individual is afraid to rebuild on their own. And rebuild in this context means that life is our boxing matches with life are, bare knuckle, right? Life hits all of us in some ways. You fill that in however you wish. Some days are fantastic. Some days we'll never forget, and not for good reason. So, I feel like this individual does not want to detach from dependency on another person. My bad, the camera just froze. And it kind of, I'm not scared of too much, but it makes me uneasy because I'm a pretty good judge of character. And one of my biggest pet peeves, some of you guys maybe can relate. I really have disdain for people not being able to see what I see. Or not having the foresight. But I guess that's a component of human nature, especially relationships. Right? You're with a woman, she's fine as hell. The bedroom is on point. She doesn't nag you too much. She works. She paints on Saturday morning. She has a cat. There's so many qualities and attributes that just magnetize you to this woman, right? And then you're on your second beer at a cookout or brunch or whatever, it is. And God forbid your mother or, a trusted female family member steps to you and says, "Where did you meet her?" They give you this probably indirect indicator to say, keep your eyes peeled, nigga. You know what I mean? Or one of your boys, you know how we are, very direct. So they might come to you and be like, "Yo, you didn't hear about..." Now, I know there's a lot of gossipy dudes these days. I'm gonna make a video on that too. It pisses me off. But I put curses on you niggas because, sure, mention my name when I'm not there in the context of a reference or, a productive story. But when you start gossiping about other dudes, you might have some other things going on internally. That's none of my business, but most guys who respect you, they ain't even gotta be a friend. Just most upright dudes will tell you, you sure about her, or I heard this, or I heard that, or watch out for her, cause such and such, grapevine type thing, right? Now, at that crossroads, some guys will, I've seen it work in three different directions. I've seen some guys just lose all control and they, I'm being hyperbolic, but they flip the table and they're stressing and they're damn near panting like a dog in heat, and they're just, they've let that challenge, because that's what it is. You're telling somebody about, somebody that you care about. They've let that challenge completely rip the rug out from underneath them, right? That's the first method. I wouldn't advise that. Second is you hear what's being said, you process it, and you keep that resolve, you could call it even a poker face, as these narratives kind of come into your brain. Then third, you kind of a variation of the first route, you march straight up to the woman and you try to check her in this very unnaturally aggressive way. I wouldn't advise that either, right? So back to cohabitation. The individual I'm speaking about has been with this woman for 8 years. You know, this ain't no little what you doing on Saturday type thing. This is like, yeah, that's a long time, especially in today's world. Now, they've been living together for, I think, more than 5. So things, if not already, are starting to get very serious. You know what I mean? And here's the rub. This individual I'm talking about, he's not the type of person you can step to and just say it like it is. Meaning, if I were to step to him and say, I would not be in that situation if I were you. Most guys will hear that, they might laugh it off, they might talk a little shit. You know, it's gonna be even if we disagree, it's gonna be a very level interaction. You know, it's the type of individual that would get very defensive and shrivel up in the aspect of what they believe, you know. So if I were to say something like, damn, she just got a job, y'all do things on the weekends together, meaning this person is also an artist, so they do like cool like paintings and all kinds of like kind of earthy, like pottery and stuff, and they, you know, that's a common point that they have. So I'm like, that's awesome. But being the cynical person born on the 8th that I am, talk more about that in another video. Serious 8, right? I'm always looking for where the rubber meets the road. I'm always looking for what could happen, the real. I don't care how it makes me feel. So I sense just a leech. I sense a leeching energy. And people who are leeches, damn, it's had a huge download. But people who are leeches are masters at sensing, like, you know, it's kind of like that whole narcissist empath dynamic. I'm not going there today. But, you know, a lion knows what a zebra looks like, right? An owl knows what a rabbit looks like. You get my point. So it's almost this predetermined duel, right? Because that person can, you know, as we say, and I mean, this is just with people in general, but, you know, people can sniff out certain elements of who you are. You understand? So if you come in the room with your shoulders slumped and you sigh before every sentence and you say, you know, everything you say is so, you know, people have, maybe not, they may want to like you, but because of your presentation, and see, I used to get this fucked up. I used to think that presentation was like fake or, you know, not you. But it's a weird balance. It's like a 51-49 balance. It's not quite even, but where you would put that word fake, just put adaptable. You know, where you would put putting on the front, just put like you're writing a script. Like, just like these certain words like script, presentation, first impression, they're not bad words. They're not words of a con man or a deceiver. They're just elements of how we interact. I used to internalize that and think, no damn presentation. You know, that whole knucklehead shit. Yeah, I'm who I am. You can't tell me how to do me, and all, you know. And that got me certain places, but it didn't get me that far. You understand? Because it all appeals back to, that ain't what I do. It's bullshit. Alright. So, same house, 8 years, same artistic endeavors, which on the surface is a healthy thing, but as I just explained, it's all the time. It's all the time. It's all the time. And y'all are saying, well, damn, what's so bad about that? Maybe they're happy. I'm not hating on it. I actually want them to be happy, but this individual has lived with a woman before, and she kicked him to the curb. And I don't say that in no damn 60s band smoking a cigarette out back cool way. I ain't, I'm not saying it like some just, another one bites the dust. She like affected him and very much emotionally by discarding him like he was trash. And that hurt my feelings because I care about this person. So, I remember we were at lunch one day and I said, kind of like that mistake you made with, again, males, right? Usually we can tell each other we made a mistake. And if a man really respects you, he'll say it to you even as a joke, just to lighten the transmission. So it's not this, you should have did what I did, nigga. Like, no. Nobody's perfect. But like I mentioned earlier, that person got very like, oh, what do you mean? It wasn't a mistake. I remember it so distinctly. They were like, it wasn't a mistake. And, I just let the conversation burn out there because I'm like, wow, we can't even. And I didn't take it personal. But from my point of view, it was like, how do you not face that? It's over. It's been over. So how do you not just say, yeah, I was a dumbass for that? It's not that difficult. Lord knows I've made some dumb decisions. So now we're getting more to the questionnaire. Now, I don't really fear what could happen. I just wonder about it. It's almost like I'm curious. It'd be different if I was on here just spewing hatred and this and that and this and that. But I'm just basically saying, as somebody that is doing very well for himself, at least as far as I can tell, and I feel like they got a leech on their hands. And I feel like that leech doesn't really have to do anything. Because the thing about a leech isn't always bad either. A leech is simply kind of a parasite. I mean, that's so. And when I say it's not bad, what I mean is they don't always know that they're being a leech. Why? Because usually the person they're leeching from has created an environment or a sequence or approved certain behaviors to where terms like that are not even used. So what generally happens is that 8 years becomes 12 years, becomes 14. That's if there's not a fight or something in between there, and all that stuff builds up, and the person who, it just gets messy. And I've seen this happen before with people. And it's one thing when you can talk to, say, your brother or somebody, and they're going through that, and you can say, like, dang, what the hell y'all gonna do? And they'll be like, I don't know, she keep pressing me about, like a real down to earth. But whenever I talk to this person, it's always like, yep, things are great. It's like I'm always waiting on that, that other shoe to drop. And I'm like, That's just me being nosy, man. And again, it ain't no gossip. It ain't no, I think she can. No. I really want to know, maybe I'm missing something. Am I being too critical? Am I being too observant? Maybe a little paranoid? Because I would hate for this individual to be cast back into the sea that he just swam out of. Alright? And I'll be honest with y'all, even though I'm not getting into names, cities and all that, the person I'm thinking of can do so much freaking better. So much better. So again, tying this bow, going back to the independence thing or dependence thing. Don't ever just chill with somebody or just stay with somebody because you feel like you're going to be alone, especially if you're a man. Don't ever just say, well, at least I got me a girl, because we don't need to go there, but you don't have to do that these days. If you want companionship, if you want, casual in and out, you can achieve that quite easily. But that whole system of like, oh, I'm just with somebody and we're happy. You can't keep that up forever. And people can start to sense when things are like buckling. So my friend out there with the cohabitation, and I told him, and y'all can correct me if you need to, I said, if you're a man and you've been blessed with a relationship that's worked, where y'all are laughing, you got intimacy, y'all know what I mean, your chemistry, like finishing each other's sentences and all, this blissful element of it, you better have a plan. Because if you don't have a plan, that person on the other side of the bed will have a plan. And especially if you are I'm talking about breadwinner in terms of money. I'm talking about, remember, the leech-host dynamic. If you're the host, they ain't gonna tell you their plan. Because ultimately, you're down for it anyway. You're the host. They're already in. There's no more need for a Trojan horse or some type of diversion. I love that word. But there's no game here. It's just. So I wonder, do y'all have a certain cutoff when it comes to, alright, what are we doing? The whole Sunday morning after a night of just passionate intimacy, you wake up and, pancakes and coffee or whatever you may be into, and so what are we? What are we doing? We've all been there, right? Is there a certain time zone for that? Like 5 years, I've heard, 7 years. If y'all can't tell, this is a genuine question. I'm not bashing anyone. I'm asking, at what point does it come to that? I think the longest cohabitation I've seen is 14 years, but that was on a television show. Alright? We're talking about people in their lives. So, am I scrutinizing too heavy? Let me put it plainly as I wrap this segment up. Thank you guys for watching, by the way. If you stay with a woman for 6 years, and that 6 becomes 8 years, is everything gonna be sunshine? We're not talking rappers and nobody that's just I take the car, go shop, and be back by 6. We gotta eat. We're not talking this super glorious lifestyle, right? Is that man setting himself up for something that he'll eventually regret, or is his method of going with the flow, is he doing the right thing?